With free agency beginning, there is so much Chiefs news to cover. There's no way I'm going to be able to keep up this week, but I actually had to start with one about a player that was already on the roster prior to the start of this offseason, Travis Kelce. And it's a little bit of an evolution because as I started doing my work, prepping the video, the article had just broken that said Kelce was coming back, but maybe not for the Chiefs. And then, of course, there was a report this morning that he was coming back to the Chiefs, and then now another report this afternoon that he has agreed to a deal with the Kansas City Chiefs. Today, we're going to be breaking that down. What do I think of it? What are the possible terms? How's it going to affect the team? And what does it mean? What does it mean about where Travis Kelce thinks the team's at? What does it mean about the strategy of the Kansas City Chiefs moving forward in the draft and the rest of free agency? We're going to break down all of that and more today on Chiefs Coast Bias. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Chiefs Coast Bias with me, Mal Gore. Yesterday, the news broke that Kelce was looking to come back for another season, not retiring, but every article also mentioned that he was going to look at other teams. Of course, as I prepared the video, that story evolved. It then became earlier today. Yes, he will return to the Chiefs, and now we have seen that he has, in fact, signed a one-year contract worth $12 million. According to Adam Schefter, it's worth up to 12, or it can go up to 15 million with incentives. Not sure if those are likely to be earned versus not likely. That has cap ramifications. We're also not sure of the length of the deal. Other reports earlier in the day said that it could be a 1 or 2 year deal in order to give the Chiefs some cap relief, allowing them to move a little bit off the books this year into the next season. We'll talk about that in a little bit as we look ahead to the 2027 Chiefs cap situation. But I think this one is important because for so many fans, even the ones who are skeptical of bringing Kelce back, we did not want to see him in another uniform. This is a Chiefs legend, someone who has given us fans so many memories in his career, has all this hardware, and was a productive player even before the arrival of the GOAT Patrick Mahomes. And every fan just loves Kelce. They love his attitude, his demeanor, his commitment. He plays the game fun. And we've also seen him grow so much as a player over the years, from that immaturity that he had in his first season starting in 2014 up to who he is now, which is a real leader, a veteran, and someone who is just a gravitational force in the locker room where other players want to emulate him. They want to be around him. They want to play hard for him, and he wants to play hard for them. So I am going to cover some of the upside and the downside, but as a Chiefs fan, it's hard for me to say that I hate the fact that Kelce came back. I also think that we cannot cast full judgment, even those of us, and I will include myself among them, who are skeptical about giving Kelce another somewhat large deal, because we can't really assess it until we see the rest of the offseason. The Chiefs still have a lot of free agency in front of them. They have 9 picks in the draft. Today it was announced they have another 5th round compensatory pick that was awarded to them. I believe that means the Chiefs are picking like 18 times in the 5th round now. So Brett Veach has a lot to work with. Between that free agency and the draft, there's a lot of things the Chiefs can do to solve their problems that mean that even if you're skeptical about the money that Kelce's getting or the fact that they're bringing him back, it may not be something that's very detrimental to the team. Of course, the evolution of the story I have to talk about. Yesterday, it broke that he was expected to play, but there was no guarantee it was going to be with the Chiefs. Said he wasn't a sure thing. His representatives are talking to multiple teams. And of course, one of the main factors it discussed is the Chiefs' limited cap room, and that they projected a 1-year, $10 million deal. That ended up being pretty close. It's 1 year, $12 million. And we know from the past that the Chiefs want him. They had no doubt he could still play. Clark Hunt was all in. So I think most fans knew that if Kelce wanted to come back, the Chiefs were going to make it happen. Kelce had also himself said that he was anxious to work with Eric Bieniemy again, that he was really hype. He loved Eric Bieniemy as a coach. And when he did that, most of us took notice because he was talking as though he was coming back. And we know from 2 seasons ago that Kelce had a really rough season. Obviously, last year didn't turn out well in terms of win and losses and with Mahomes getting hurt. But the season before that, I think Kelce really learned a lesson, which is that he could not come back unless he was willing to put the work in. And I'm thinking that he has matured to where he's still internalized that. I don't think this is going to be a casual, I'm coming back for a year. I think he's going to put in the time this offseason. He's going to do it right, because this time I think he knows 100% this is his last run. He's getting married this summer. They're probably going to start a family quickly. He can get a full final farewell season in before he starts getting on dad duty. And so I think he's going to be taking it very seriously. I'm not worried about whether or not Travis Kelce is going to give his all to this team. He has earned the benefit of the doubt over the years. He has given me more memories than almost any other Chiefs player, and I really appreciate his time here, and I want him to come back. Or since he is coming back, I want him to have a fantastic final season. I want him and Mahomes to set the league on fire one more time, even if at age 37, that doesn't look quite the same way it did when he was, say, 31, 32 years old. And then, of course, reported earlier today that he is expected to return for the Chiefs. They said 1-year deal worth up to $15 million. I gave you the quote earlier that it has happened. And then this one from Nate Taylor says that it might be a 2-year deal to give the Chiefs more flexibility with their salary cap. If they add a void year to the end, it does allow them to manipulate to where they can make most of the money guaranteed, pay it to him in actual cash right now, but allow a lot of the cap hit to move from this season into next season, or maybe even 2 void years. It's $12 million. It's not an insane amount of money, but I would like to see exactly how that deal is structured in the end. And we get some of his insight into last time, because I think this tells you exactly where he thinks the team is. After the 2024 season, when the Chiefs got destroyed by the Philadelphia Eagles in the Super Bowl, Kelce said it was really easy for him to decide to come back because he didn't want to go out that way. And obviously 25 didn't work out with Mahomes getting hurt and the team being such a disappointment as the season went on. But I think this gives us an indication that he is at least confident that Mahomes is going to be there for almost all of the season. When he made his decision a year ago, it says he was haunted by the Super Bowl performance. The only way I determine if it's a successful season or not is just how I'm wired, talking about winning a title there being his main metric for evaluation. Now, you can take it with a grain of salt because we're only going to hear positive reports about Mahomes. And Kelce's talking directly to Mahomes. Of course, Patty is telling him that he's going to be back as soon as possible. Yeah, man, the rehab's going great, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
He's a competitive prick.
But I think this does indicate that Kelce is convinced that Mahomes is not going to miss very much time. If he thought Mahomes was going to be missing half the season or around half of the season or even more than half of the season, I don't think he would be coming back to Kansas City because he would know that the odds of them making a Super Bowl run are slim to none. So maybe Mahomes is all an illusion or he's buying his own hype, because who could really know at this point in the rehab exactly when he's coming back? But he has certainly convinced Travis Kelce that he's confident he'll be back early in the season to give the Chiefs a chance to make another run at the playoffs and give Kelce one last chance to make the Super Bowl. And when we talk about the contracts at tight end, we're purely talking about relative to the value of other tight ends in the NFL. This is a reasonable amount of money to pay. One, it's a 1-year deal. You're not trying to sign him for multiple seasons. The team and Kelce, I think both are acknowledging this is it. This is the final run for Travis Kelce. He will only be a Chief. He will retire Chief, and this is going to be his final Chief season. But it cracks him right inside the top 10 to get that $12 million for 1 year. He's just below Pat Freiermuth, Jake Ferguson. So he's right at that Dalton Schultz level. And when you look at production, it's hard to say that he's being overpaid in terms of that. The only caveat there is if you as a fan are confident that he's going to somehow fall off a cliff or see a massive decrease in production. I'm not really seeing it. There's the injury risk is the X factor to me. You're, of course, more likely to get hurt the older that you are in the NFL. But in terms of yardage, production, all of those things, this contract value matches for me. It's not an egregious overpay, and it's not overburdening the team. But I do think it indicates a few other things. This also probably means we're going to see more contract restructures from the Chiefs. Between the 3 contracts that they signed today, I think before the Kelce one, they were probably around 8 or 9 million in cap space left. So let's say that Kelce's taking probably at least 4 million of that, even if they backload a bunch of it to count on next year's cap. So you're looking at a Chiefs team that's going to need more money to sign a couple more players and to sign their draft class. So I do think this is an indication we're going to get a restructure. I think it's an indication that they believe they're confident that Mahomes is coming back. And I think this also means that they are not going to be super aggressive in the wide receiver market. I expect the Chiefs to sign a wide receiver, but we didn't hear any news today, and we saw some big names come off the board without any action from the Chiefs. They clearly prioritized running back, which is going to be a separate video I'm doing on Walker. The Chiefs are probably looking at very low cost free agents, maybe bringing back Thornton or, God forbid, bringing back Hollywood Brown or Juju Smith Schuster. And then I think you're going to see some drafting as well. I mean, they have 3 wide receivers on the roster now functionally that can contribute. So if you're talking about 1 or 2 cheap free agency signings and then a draft pick, then the rest of the wide receivers are just going to be bodies for camp and practice squad. So this could be an indication that the Chiefs have decided to invest their money other places and not at the wide receiver position. Not that they won't sign one, but that they're not going to sign one that's going to command a high dollar value contract. And when we look at pushing some of that Kelce cap number to the future, I'm not that concerned about it. I've kind of shown this slide before, but the Chiefs 2027 cap situation is not egregious. In fact, I think it's pretty solid when you look at the team. They have 78.4 million, but there's 4 obvious cut candidates. And I don't think any fan would be crying if a year from now we were cutting 32-year-old Chris Jones, Nick Bolton at the back end of his career, Harrison Butker, Noah Gray. You cut just those players, you're at 122.87 million in cap space for next season. Even when we deduct the draft classes, even when we deduct the free agents, you're still talking at probably just under $100 million in cap space after those cuts. So having Kelce count for some $6 million or maybe a little bit more on the books is not something that's going to severely hamper this team. In fact, the year-over-year cap increase is probably going to be more than that $6 million. So in terms of percentage, it's going to be an even smaller effect on the team. So people that are saying or that believe that the Chiefs should have avoided Kelce because of some sort of cap constraint, I don't think that we need to be thinking about it that way in terms of 2027 cap. I think we need to be thinking about it in terms of who are different players you could have gotten right now this season on the roster, which is why I think we need to wait to give this a final grade. Let's see how some of the receiving threats pan out in terms of their contracts. The ones that were signed today are clearly out of the Chiefs league. I can't believe how much money the 49ers are giving Mike Evans on a multi-year deal. The Pierce contract is out of the Chiefs price range. So I'm going to wait to give my final, grade, if you will, on the Kelce signing to see how that wide receiver market shakes out. If it turns out that there is no wide receiver who can get anywhere near that production for that value, then I do think this is a home run no-brainer, even recognizing that Kelce is older, that he is going to still experience some level of decline, that he might only be a 700 to 800 yard tight end instead of a 900 to 1100 yard tight end. Kelce's career stats, the only thing I want you to look at is 2025, just to see that the decline, again, really wasn't there. In fact, fewer receptions, more yards. I like that, because one thing I'm about to talk about is the other downside to this isn't really cap related. In some ways, it's just about what is Mahomes and the offense going to do, or what are they going to become versus are they going to stay stale and stay the way that they were before? Well, you see here that Kelce became way more efficient in 2025, less receptions, more yards, which means higher yards per reception, a couple more touchdowns, and to me, the most important one, catch percentage. That gives me confidence, and it should give the Chiefs confidence that even if you do phase Kelce out of this offense more, maybe you decrease his targets by 20%, he only gets 75 to 80 targets, he's still catching it at a high rate, and that's what we're looking for. When he gets the opportunities, he will maximize them. He doesn't have to be a volume target tight end, which means he doesn't have to command the ball away from others. The other red flag here for me, as far as other pieces of the team that I've talked about before, is look at your 2 starting wideouts, Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice. Not awful players, but which one of them has shown you that they're going to be reliable to step up? It is good to have another option. It is impossible to argue that having multiple quality options for Patrick Mahomes is a bad thing for this team. I also want you to look at this, because this is the one thing that I think is a potential downside, which is that I mentioned Rashee Rice probably his last year as a Chief. Who cares, right? Worthy going into his 3rd year. Theoretically, he has at least 2 more with Kansas City if they exercise the 5th-year option. We've got Jalen Royals, who's going into his 2nd year. And then we're going to probably have some young players that we draft or sign off the street. I'm not worried about Kelce taking attention away from any rookies that we would draft in the mid to late rounds, because Andy Reid ain't going to play them anyway. And he's shown consistently that that's not going to happen. Now, if we draft a receiver in the 1st or 2nd round, something that I'm all for, then yeah, we want to make sure that that receiver gets out on the field and gets some targets. But I think one reasonable concern, if you're a fan who's on the fence about this signing, is that we are too over reliant on Kelce when he's on the field. And it is arguable that you don't want to give that much attention from your offense to a 37-year-old player in his final season when you have other players to develop. That is an insane. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm going backwards. I'm going backwards. That is an insane chart right there, or an insane table, that he has averaged 135 targets a season under Mahomes. And look at that percentage. That is wild. And honestly, the only reason that that percentage I think is even a little lower last year was that there was some not Mahomes time out there and there just weren't as many pass attempts. You know, when you have Dumb and Dumber at quarterback for the last few weeks of the season, Kelsey's not going to get as many targets because we're going 3 and out. There ain't as many targets to be had because we're doing run, pass, punt, the Herm Edwards offense, if you will. So Kelce sucks up a lot of targets. He sucks up a high percentage. I love Kelce being on the team and doing the final ride. I would like to see that go down. I would like to continue to see that go down. I would love to see that go down to 15%, in fact, especially with what I showed you earlier, where he's still efficient with a high catch percentage and all of those things. But that to me is the only real downside, is by bringing Kelce back one more year, you know Mahomes is going to depend on him. Is it going to detract from the development of other players, take targets away from other players? Is it going to keep your offense stale because you are refusing to shift production and shift the potential from production to other places? I think that's a legitimate concern. All of that being said, I'm still a fan of this signing. Like I said, I'll wait for my final grade to see exactly what it looks like with other receiver contracts and free agency. But you got him for 1 year. You've done it in a way where it's not going to greatly hinder your cap. And if he is convinced that Mahomes is coming back, this is a special tandem, and I think it's worth bringing back. The only caveat for me is it cannot be the centerpiece of your offense. This cannot be someone that's getting 23, 24, 25% of the targets. He needs to be a role player. He needs to be somebody that's mostly working to free other people up, and he needs to be a locker room presence. Overall, I'm super pumped. I'm pumped for the guy. He's marrying one of the most famous and beautiful women in the world. He's about to start a family. He's ending the greatest tight end career of all time. And he's still producing. This isn't the Chiefs mean. This isn't a charity case for Kansas City where it's like, oh, you've given us so much, let's give you one last run. No. You were one of the 5 most productive tight ends in the NFL. You had over 800 yards, and that was without your quarterback for the last month of the season. He deserves it. I'm pumped about it. I want to see Kelce come back. We're going to be doing a lot more analysis of some of these free agent signings. I think the next player that I want to talk about is Walker, because that's clearly the big stud contract the Chiefs gave out at a position that every fan knew the Chiefs needed to address. I think it says a lot about the Chiefs and their plans moving forward. But what do you think? Is this too much? Are the Chiefs clinging on to somebody that they shouldn't be paying? Are you worried he's going to take targets away from other players or hold the team back? Or are you just excited to see if Kelce can give us one more run with Mahomes? And do you think that this is an indication that Mahomes is coming back? Or is it just an indication that Mahomes has convinced Travis Kelce that he's coming back? Those are all the things I'd love to hear from you. If you want to like, subscribe, comment on the video, help me push it out, get it to more people. I'll be bringing you these all week as the Chiefs kick into overdrive for free agency. Until then, I'm Mal Gore. This is Chiefs Coast Bias, and I hope you have a fan-flippin-tastic day.